Tonight on CFTK-TV News, police in Smithers seek a suspected arsonist. The Tahltan central government solidifies their land use plan, and wildfire encroaches on Alberta industry.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. I'm Jaylene Matthews. The Burns Lake RCMP's Crime Reduction Unit made a discovery while conducting a traffic stop on a person that was already known to police. The unit noticed the suspect operating his vehicle, and after stopping him for a motor vehicle offense, they saw noticeable suspected drugs in the vehicle and arrested the driver along with the vehicle's passenger. Further searching of the vehicle led to officers finding over $500 in cash, over 30 grams of suspected crack cocaine, and other evidence of drug trafficking. The police later searched the suspect's residence and also found illegal cigarettes, over $10,000 in cash, various blunt and edged weapons, and other suspected drugs like psilocybin, cocaine, and prescription pills. The suspect did eventually get released from custody, but the investigation is still ongoing. The Smithers RCMP have put out a request for help from the public to identify a man who might have been responsible for starting a pair of smaller scale fires. On both May 31st and June 1st, a man who was walking his two dogs is believed to be potentially responsible for lighting the contents of a pair of garbage cans by the Bulkley Valley Christian School on fire. The fires are believed to have started sometime between 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. on both nights. The Smithers police have since obtained a pair of surveillance pictures of the man that's currently suspected to be the one who started both fires. They're now asking for anyone with information that can identify the man to call them. And a report from a reported audit from BC's Forestry Practices Board has found that the Tahltan Nation Development Corporation complied with the Forest and Range Practices Act and Wildfire Act in all significant respects on its 3.2 million hectare First Nations woodland license. The audit examined harvesting, road and bridge work, and wildfire protection. The board says the audit confirmed good forestry planning and practices while outlining 4 areas for improvement. Meanwhile, the Tahltan Nation has announced that it has agreed to formally begin collaborating with the province of BC on a Phase 1 land use plan, which they say is a significant milestone in advancing Tahltan stewardship goals. The Tahltan Nation has developed and finalized the plan through the Stewardship Initiative, which they say outlines Tahltan principles for caring for and stewardship of all land within the Tahltan territory. Phase 1 of the land use plan, which aims to conserve and permanently protect vital areas like Clapham, Level Mountain, Chesley, and Tahltan Lake. It also seeks to enhance co-management and shared governance tools. And in a release from the province, they say they are also working on land use plans with the Taku River Tlingit, Cascadena, Gittinyao, and Niska nations. The province says that last week, Premier David Eby outlined the government's vision for building prosperity centered on economic growth, reconciliation, and conservation in northwestern BC. The vision includes partnering with First Nations to achieve large-scale conservation and strengthen reconciliation. Engagement on the land use plans will begin in the coming weeks. And last week, the city of Prince Rupert saw the sidewalk along 2nd Avenue right next to the Rupert Square Mall begin to slump badly enough to the point that the mall had to be closed down briefly. And while the city is still monitoring the status of the sidewalk, they've also since closed down not only that damaged section of the sidewalk, but the area where the mall and sidewalk meet as well. Pedestrians and drivers attempting to park are encouraged to obey all detour indications to keep being safe. The city of Prince Rupert said that they'd provide another update on the situation when possible. Coming up next, an ancient artifact finds its way home. Welcome back. It was a pivotal moment for the Haiduk people on the central coast of BC as the nation has signed a new constitution. CTV's Ben Miljo reports.
Today is a momentous occasion for the Haiduk people that will echo for many generations.
Signing a new constitution in the Big House in Bella Bella, Heiltsuk Nation leaders took a step forward by looking to the past.
It clarifies and creates certainty for ourselves, for other governments, such as the provincial and federal government, as well as proponents that might want to do business in our territory.
The new constitution has been in the works for close to 2 decades, involved extensive community engagement, and passed a referendum with an overwhelming 67% majority.
Today we declare to the world that we, the Heiltsuk Nation, and governments are renewing and reclaiming our ancestral laws and authority.
Traditionally, the Heiltsuk and other BC First Nations developed a system of hereditary leadership. Under the Indian Act, Canada imposed elected chiefs and councils on them. The new constitution enshrines a framework that will see power and decision-making shared by the elected chief and council, hereditary chiefs, and the Women's Council in a combination of modern democracy and historic ways of governance.
It's going to provide guidance and leadership for our next generations to be able to steer the ship of the Heiltsuk Nation to propel ourselves forward in a good way, holding on to our ancestral teachings.
The Friday signing ceremony was followed by a feast in the Big House and a whole weekend celebrating Heiltsuk culture. Ben Milger, CTV News.
A priceless piece of history has been recovered near Comox First Nation and preserved thanks to a bespoke archaeological permitting system. Here's CTV's Andy Garland.
Tucked in the Comox First Nation's elective chief's hands is piece of history.
You have no concept of how old something is until you're holding it and you're just thinking about the past.
The artifact is believed to date back to the late 1700s.
Really gives context to how long the Comox people have been in the territory and the Pentlatch people.
This is a wooden wedge with a cordage collar.
The wedge was used to split wood, but it's not made of stone or antler. It is also made of wood, which makes it a rare find.
But because this was a waterlogged site, these were below the water table, this has preserved from about 3,800 years ago.
The artifacts, which includes a piece of rope, are continually sprayed with water while being handled to prevent drying out.
These ones are being kept in water in a cool place until they're preserved.
The pieces of history were unearthed in March near the Comox Administration Building during the regional district's ongoing sewer conveyance project.
They were found because Comox has its own archaeology permitting system.
The Comox Cultural Heritage Investigation Permit allows the First Nation to protect cultural heritage materials that are found outside the provincial archaeological boundaries, like these two artifacts.
The Heritage Conservation Act wasn't doing enough to protect these important artifacts and our history. To see this process working just outside of those boundaries is really exciting.
The First Nation say with a trained eye, signs of their past can be found on the shoreline every day and feel that every single piece is significant.
Whether it's ancestors or artifacts, they tell so much about our history and how long we've been here.
Andy Garland, CTV News, the Comox First Nation.
The BC Wildfire Service says high winds and lightning activity over the weekend have brought increased potential for new fire starts in the southeast and northeast. The service's latest bulletin says much of the province is expected to see widespread drying and winds along with hot weather this week. It says the combination of factors is likely to intensify fire behavior, especially in areas experiencing drought year after year, such as the northeast corner of BC. There are about 70 active wildfires across the province, with just over half classified as burning out of control. With the wildfire season currently full on, concerns over air quality are real. CTV's Heather Wright.
More than 150 forest fires are burning across Canada right now. Not only have thousands been forced from their homes, the smoke from those fires is impacting millions of people across North America, with the smoke traveling as far away as Europe.
These are forest fires that are sending smoke really high into the atmosphere. And those tiny particles, because there's so much heat, there's so much energy in those fires, those smoke particles can travel really long distances.
The bulk of the air quality warnings are for Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and northwestern Ontario, though experts warn the list could grow over the coming days. Over the weekend, smoke drifted into parts of Wisconsin, Nebraska, North Dakota, and Minnesota, where hazy conditions have been reported as far south as Georgia. Experts say the best advice is to follow air quality warnings and stay indoors as much as possible.
The health impacts of these smoke particles, that are especially the ones that are smaller than about 0.3 of a millimeter, is that they can really get deep into your lungs. And so one of the things that people want to do when there's a smoke alert is avoid spending too much time outdoors.
The hazy skies in some parts of North America, reminiscent of the 2023 wildfire season, the most destructive ever recorded in Canada. More than 6,000 fires burned a staggering 150,000 square kilometers, creating dangerous air quality for many parts of the continent. Some tips from experts include using an air purifier inside and keeping windows closed as much as possible.
Now let's take a look at your Northwest weather report. Tonight on the North Coast, expect conditions to be mainly cloudy with a 40% chance of showers or drizzle overnight and a low of 9 degrees. Over the next few days on the North Coast, expect rain, clouds, and showers. Temperatures in the mid-teens and lows between 8 and 11 degrees. Tonight in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect conditions to be partly cloudy. A 30% chance of showers overnight. Winds from the south at 20 kilometers an hour, gusting to 40, becoming light this evening and a low of 10 degrees. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, clouds and showers are in the forecast for the rest of the week. Then it's looking like sun and clouds for the weekend. Daily highs between 15 and 24 degrees, overnight lows between 10 and 13 degrees. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect it to be partly cloudy, becoming clear this evening, a low of +4 with patchy frost. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect conditions to be mainly sunny with a few clouds and maybe a few showers. Daily highs between 18 and 26 degrees, overnight lows dropping into the 6 to 9 degree range. Checking your Northwest highways now. On Highway 16, there's construction work with a detour in Prince Rupert. There's also bridge maintenance, utility work, road sweeping, and mowing to watch out for. On Highway 37, watch for bridge construction, frost heaves, as well as road construction. 37A, watch for falling rocks, as well as bridge maintenance. On Highway 118, there's roadside brushing, and on the Niska Highway, there's bridge maintenance. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Thanks for staying with us. Multiple Alberta-based companies have shut down operations because of the wildfire danger, including Cenovus Energy. CTV's Kathy Lee looks at the impact of that decision and the fires burning in that province.
A wildfire in the Lac La Biche area in northern Alberta, encroaching on key oil and gas production sites. Calgary-based Cenovus Energy, MEG Energy, and Canadian Natural Resources Limited have been forced to evacuate their employees.
That fire is still burning pretty good. It's about 61,000 hectares. And we're still working to get the perimeter around it to close it in. We're not there yet.
All three companies also needing to temporarily stop production. Cenovus says approximately 238,000 barrels per day of production have been impacted.
Even when they come back online, it's going to be difficult for them to ramp up their production enough to make up for that. Now, the good news is the resource remains in the ground and safe and secure, so it's just going to shift their profits to a later point.
Cooler temperatures, higher humidity, and weekend rain have desperately helped ground crews. But multiple communities are still waiting to return, with several wildfires fiercely out of control, including the Red Earth East wildfire complex that has destroyed many structures in northern Chipewyan Lake.
We believe we have lost 27 structures, including the senior center, the water treatment plant, the church, and the Big Stone Health Center.
In central Alberta, people evacuated from Yellowhead County last week return home tomorrow.
The fire is still pegged as out of control. It's far enough away from the communities at this point that we feel that it is safe for them to re-enter.
Sprinkler systems have been set up inside the communities, but the county mayor says residents should have an evacuation plan and be prepared to leave again if necessary. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Turning to the markets now, Canada's main stock index edged up and U.S. markets climbed. The Canadian dollar fell almost 1/10 cent. The price of gold dropped $20.10. Oil rose by 89 cents. Natural gas rose by 3 cents. Aluminum rose by $22. In Toronto, the TSX rose by nearly 38 points. The Venture Index rose almost 10. In New York, the Nasdaq rose by 156 points and the Dow Jones rose by 214. Canada's first ministers have met in Saskatoon to set priorities for nation-building projects that aim to turn the country into a global energy superpower.
After an 8-hour meeting, the Prime Minister did not produce a short list of nation-building projects, but Mark Carney still made some premiers feel like it was Christmas.
I described him as Santa Claus. He's coming, and his sled was full of all sorts of stuff. Now he's taking off back to the North Pole. He's going to sort it out.
It's an important step forward for us being able to have that showdown with China, have that showdown with the Trump administration, and make sure that you and your jobs come out on top.
Big infrastructure projects being considered include expanded shipping ports, railways, highways, new nuclear energy plants, and critical mineral development, along with pipelines that carry cleaner oil.
Yes, for an oil pipeline to get to Tidewater. Now, within the broader context of national interest, the interest is in, as mentioned in the press release, decarbonized barrels.
Alberta's premier still plans to push for a pipeline to carry bitumen from northern BC to northern Manitoba to get the energy to Asia and Europe. Danielle Smith says selling that oil can help pay for the billions needed to develop the technology to decarbonize.
I think that there's, when we hear the Prime Minister talking about being an energy superpower, we haven't heard that kind of language for some time on both conventional and clean power.
But First Nations are upset they weren't at the table.
First Nations are very concerned, though, that this federal proposal has the potential to violate many collective rights of First Nations.
Carney says the federal government will pass a bill to fast-track and approve projects within 2 years. He says First Nations will be consulted.
We're united, we're going to build together, and we're going to build for all. We're going to build for all Canadians.
Now that the Prime Minister has the support of the premiers, he has to get the legislation passed in Parliament. This will be the first major test of his minority government.
Still ahead, One Nation's innovative food sovereignty initiative. A man who now lives in British Columbia after spending more than 2 decades in prison has had his 3 murder convictions quashed. Robert Sanderson and 2 others were charged in the 1996 killings of 3 men in Winnipeg, with an expert Crown witness saying hair found on one victim was identified as belonging to Sanderson. But DNA testing later established the hair came from someone else. Former Justice Minister David Lametti referred Sanderson's case to the Manitoba Court of Appeal in 2023 for a new hearing, and advocacy group Innocence Canada says the Crown has stayed proceedings after the court ordered a new trial. And food sovereignty has been top of mind for many, and one BC Indigenous group is returning to their roots in order to tackle food security. Here's CTV's Brendan Strain.
Well, we're standing in the middle of what will eventually be a 28 by 12 commercial grade salmon processing facility.
Jared Williams is a member of Cowichan Tribes and has been working on a project to help bring food security to his First Nation community. Below the building is a cold storage root cellar, and it's only a stone's throw away from his traditional smokehouse.
When I was a kid, everybody had a smokehouse.
Jared says that's no longer the case on his First Nation. His goal is to bring back that tradition that is being slowly lost over time.
All I'm trying to do is use the knowledge I've learned from elders and ancestors to hand it over to those who are next.
It's also about creating economic opportunities for that future generation, selling traditionally smoked fish outside of his community.
It's like a win-win-win every way around.
Jared is doing most of the construction work himself, with some help from his father. Although with rising material costs, a little financial help was needed. Therefore, he applied for funding through the province's Indigenous Food Security and Sovereignty program.
To promote Indigenous food sovereignty as well as to support the traditional mechanism of processing food.
It's a $30 million program spread out over 3 years. Jared received $80,000.
This connects people back to their roots. It connects communities together, so I think it's excellent.
Jared hopes to have his kitchen finished by early next year, meeting almost all of the regulations necessary to sell his salmon on the market commercially.
We didn't always rely on grocery stores, right? We relied on harvesting and preserving for long-term use. So how do we return to that, right? Everything is really expensive, but we can still wild harvest. We can still look after ourselves. We just have to remember how.
Brendan Strain, CTV News, North Cowichan.
It's the season for prom, so congratulations to our Northwest graduates. One Canadian organization has put special effort into making prom season as inclusive as possible. CTV's Camille Wilson was there.
Sylvia is a high school graduating student who is enjoying all the fun of prom.
Dancing, taking pictures, and seeing my friends.
Sylvia is amongst 13 post-secondary students who are finishing high school, a ceremony witnessed by 48 of their peers celebrating with them.
I'm having really great time at the prom.
This prom celebrates those with physical, sensory, or cognitive barriers that would prevent them from going to a traditional prom.
Super important that everyone gets to enjoy prom, and through working with so many different high schools, it's a big part of what we believe in, inclusion and accessibility.
A day they will remember for the rest of their lives.
I'm enjoying dancing.
And it's so much fun.
Also a special appearance from Sparta Cat and Mayor Sutcliffe. Teachers even having a good time with their students.
The kids were super excited to come. We have 5 students here today, one of which is graduating, and they haven't had the opportunity to celebrate their graduation with their fellow classmates. So it was really fantastic to bring our class as well as other specialized programs together to allow them this opportunity.
The students got to mingle, laugh, smile, do coloring activities, take photos at the photo booth, and break it down like Tatiana here.
100%, and I like it. I like the photo booth.
The reaction right off the bat was everyone was so excited, but just seeing the students arrive today, I've never seen so many excited students. Everyone was clapping on their way into the room, and the dance floor has been packed so far the whole night.
And when asked how much fun they were having. You're having fun dancing?
Yeah, I have fun with my class.
Organizers hope this marks the first of a Pathways to Prom tradition. Camille Wilson, CTV News.
That's our news for now. For more local news, visit us at cftktv.com. We're also on YouTube, TikTok, X, and Blue Sky. Thanks for watching.